Subscribe now and hit the like button if you believe in second chances. Comment below. What's the biggest betrayal you've ever witnessed? The coffee that changed everything. The scent of freshly brewed coffee hung heavy in the opulent kitchen, a symbol of domestic bliss. When the man's voice, devoid of warmth, shattered 5 years of marriage. I want a divorce, Eleanor. But the real shock, the seismic shift, wasn't the words, nor the chilling calm of his ex-wife's voice asking, "Is it because of Victoria Hayes?" No. The true earthquake struck later, in the sterile quiet of a doctor's office, when 2 pink lines appeared, confirming a secret that could either destroy or rebuild an empire. What would you sacrifice to protect an unborn child from a world built on lies and betrayal? The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen when James Montgomery dropped the words that would shatter 5 years of marriage. I want a divorce, Eleanor. Eleanor Davies held her white porcelain mug, a wedding gift, as the dark liquid swirled gently. Her fingers tightened around the warm ceramic. "Is it because of Victoria Hayes?" she asked with a calm she didn't feel. James looked away, focusing on the London cityscape that stretched beyond the panoramic windows of his penthouse in Mayfair. "I don't want to hurt you more than necessary." Answering evasively is another way of hurting, Eleanor replied, placing the mug on the marble island. The clinking of the porcelain echoed in the tense silence. "Yes, it's her," James finally admitted, loosening the navy blue tie Eleanor had given him on their last anniversary. "Things just happened." Eleanor let out a bitter laugh. "Things don't just happen for 3 months straight, James. They're built, they're chosen, they're kept secret." James's face hardened. "I didn't want to have this conversation like this. And how did you want to have it? After your lawyers served me papers? Or when photos of you with her appeared in the society magazines?" James stood, smoothing his tailored suit. "The lawyers will contact you this afternoon. I've been generous with the terms." "Your generosity moves me," Eleanor replied, not moving from her seat. "Were you also generous when you offered her my position at the firm?" "That's different. That's business. Everything with you has always been business, hasn't it?" James picked up his Italian leather briefcase. "Let's keep this civil, Eleanor. Don't complicate things. Complicate things. As an architect at your firm for 7 years, as your wife for 5. Did I ever complicate anything?" The silence was his only response. Eleanor waited until she heard the private lift closing before allowing the tears to fall. She stood mechanically, walking towards the master bathroom. Her reflection in the mirror showed the face of a 33-year-old woman who, until that morning, believed she had a perfect life. The dizziness came suddenly. She barely reached the toilet before throwing up the coffee and what little dignity she had left. When the nausea passed, her eyes fixed on the calendar on her phone. 3 weeks late. With trembling hands, she opened the cabinet under the sink. The pregnancy test had been there for months, bought in a moment of hope, when they still believed starting a family was part of the plan. 15 minutes later, 2 pink lines confirmed what her body already knew. A child. Her child. The child James would never know existed. The phone rang, breaking the moment. It was an email from the city's most prestigious law firm. Subject: divorce terms. Urgent. Eleanor rose from the cold floor, wiped her tears, and straightened her back. She had exactly 8 hours to clear her belongings from the office, find a place to live, and decide how she would face her new reality. The pregnancy test ended up at the bottom of her handbag. Her hand instinctively rested on her still flat stomach. "It'll be you and me against the world, little one," she whispered, as the morning sun bathed the city that would soon no longer be her home. If you were Eleanor, would you tell James about the baby, or keep it a secret? Share your choice in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for what happens next. The architect's new path. The law firm, Sterling and Finch Associates, occupied the entire 20th floor of a tower in Canary Wharf. Eleanor gazed at the city through the large windows as she waited in the boardroom. The manila folder in front of her contained her sentence: an express divorce, the legal dissolution of 5 years in less than 2 weeks. "Mr. Montgomery has been considerate," explained Mr. Sterling, a 60-year-old man with designer glasses and an impeccable suit. "The property in Surrey, a substantial financial compensation, and, of course, an exemplary letter of recommendation." Eleanor flipped through the pages without really reading them. "And the firm?" "I'm afraid the terms are clear. My position as project director," Eleanor interrupted. "A position I earned long before becoming Mrs. Montgomery." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Contracts have specific clauses regarding post-divorce conflicts of interest. It's standard practice." "Standard?" Eleanor repeated, savoring the bitterness of the word. "Like firing a 7-year employee for the crime of having been married to the owner." "Madam Miss Davies," he suggested, "I urge you to consider the generosity of these terms. Many women in your position—" "In my position?" Eleanor slammed the folder shut. "You mean pregnant and unemployed?" The silence that followed was dense. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, uncomfortable. "You didn't mention that detail in preliminary negotiations." "Because it's not part of the negotiation," Eleanor replied, taking a pen from her handbag. "Where do I sign?" "Miss Davies, this could substantially change the terms. Mr. Montgomery should be informed." "Mr. Montgomery made his decisions," Eleanor interrupted, signing each page with methodical precision. "I'm making mine." That afternoon at the clinic, Eleanor lay back on the cold examination bed while Dr. Lewis applied the gel for the first ultrasound. "Are you alone?" the doctor asked with professional kindness. "No," Eleanor replied, looking at the black and white screen. "There are 2 of us." The sound of the heartbeat filled the room. Fast, strong, determined. Like Eleanor's heels leaving the law firm. Like the pulse in her temples as she packed her things from the office. Like the rhythm of her steps as she searched for a new flat. In the small studio flat in Clapham she rented that same afternoon, Eleanor taped the first image of her child onto the bare wall. A gray smudge the size of a bean that represented her entire future. The phone vibrated. A message from James. "The lawyers mentioned you signed without reading. Are you sure?" Eleanor looked at the image on the wall, then her barely perceptible belly under the black dress. "Completely sure," she replied, before blocking his number. That night, sitting on the floor of her new home, surrounded by unopened boxes, Eleanor wrote 2 letters. The first, a formal resignation to Montgomery Developments. The second, a list of baby names. Only one of them would be sent. The echo of her footsteps resonated in the empty space as she prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would begin the job hunt. Tomorrow she would face the world with her secret and her dignity as her only possessions. For now, in the darkness of her new beginning, she allowed the memorized sound of her child's heartbeat to lull her to sleep. Do you admire Eleanor's strength, or do you think she's being too stubborn? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more twists and turns. Humble beginnings. Eleanor's CV rested on dozens of desks across London. An architect graduated with honors, experience in international projects, a portfolio of award-winning designs, and an increasingly difficult explanation for her sudden departure from Montgomery Developments. "Why did you leave your last job?" asked the HR director of Miranda Architectural Group, studying her file. "Seeking new horizons," Eleanor replied, discreetly adjusting the blazer that was harder to close each day. "With your experience, it's strange that Montgomery let you go. Perhaps you should ask him," Eleanor replied, maintaining a professional smile while battling morning sickness, threatening to ruin the interview. 3 weeks and 15 interviews later, the reality was clear. The corporate world of architecture in London was too small, and rumors traveled faster than cover letters. Her bank account dwindled at the same rate her belly grew. At 4 months pregnant, the small studio in Clapham began to seem like an unnecessary luxury. It was then she met Mrs. Davies. The Angel's Nook was one of those restaurants that survive trends and crises. White tablecloths, silver cutlery, and a clientele that included everyone from politicians to artists. Eleanor had entered looking for the restroom, feeling dizzy after another failed interview. "Are you all right, dear?" a maternal voice asked when Eleanor emerged from the loo. Mrs. Davies, with her silver hair and impeccable apron, offered her a glass of mineral water with lemon. Pregnancy isn't easy, especially when you're alone. Eleanor drank in silence, surprised by the woman's perceptiveness. "How did you know that?" 30 years in the restaurant business, my child. One learns to read people." Mrs. Davies sat across from her. "Do you have experience in service?" "No, I'm an architect." "And are buildings hiring pregnant architects?" Eleanor shook her head. "But restaurants do hire clever waitresses," Mrs. Davies continued. "The uniform is adaptable, the tips are good, and we have medical service." Everyone starts not knowing anything," Mrs. Davies interrupted. "But you look like you learn quickly." That night, in her flat, Eleanor contemplated the restaurant's card. Her university degree hung on the wall next to the latest ultrasound. On her computer, the draft of another cover letter waited to be sent. "Sometimes you have to take a step back to gain momentum," she whispered, remembering her mother's words. The next day, Eleanor Davies, former project director at Montgomery Developments, was learning to balance plates and memorize the daily specials. Her feet ached, her back protested. But for the first time in months, she had a plan. "Cheese board for table 7, announced the chef. Eleanor adjusted her new apron and straightened her posture. In the mirror of the staff changing room, her reflection showed a different woman. Wounded pride was slowly transforming into determination. Her child moved, as if applauding her decision. "This is temporary," she promised herself and the little one. "But it's our beginning." The news exploded on social media like a bomb. James Montgomery, the property tycoon, officially introduces his new partner. Photos showed James and Victoria at the grand opening of the new Regent's Place Hotel. She, stunning in a red dress that cost more than 3 months of Eleanor's flat rent. He, radiant with that smile he used to reserve for closing big deals. Eleanor found out while serving coffee at table 12 of the Angel's Nook. "Did you see?" a regular customer commented to her companion, showing her phone screen. "He didn't even wait for the divorce to cool down." "Typical," the other replied. "Leaves his wife for an influencer. And what happened to the ex? The architect?" Eleanor gripped the coffee pot tightly, concentrating on not spilling a drop as she poured. Her black uniform, discreetly modified by Mrs. Davies to accommodate her 5 months of pregnancy, felt like armor. "Anything else I can get you, ladies?" she asked professionally. The women shook their heads without looking up from their phones, too engrossed in the gossip of the moment to notice the ex-wife standing next to them. In the kitchen, Eleanor allowed herself a moment of weakness. "Don't let it get to you," Mrs. Davies advised, appearing beside her with a tray of freshly baked bread. "Those who flaunt their happiness on social media are often the most miserable." "It's not that," Eleanor replied, wiping away a treacherous tear. "It's just that today I got the best tip of my life. From Mr. Harrison, the architect, the famous hotel designer, my university professor. I was at his table for half an hour, talking about sustainability and bioclimatic design, and he didn't recognize me. To him, I was just another waitress." Mrs. Davies put down the tray and took Eleanor's hands. "Does that make you less of an architect, less of a professional, less of a mother?" The baby kicked as if answering the question. "Life takes many turns, my dear. I also had a university degree in my country before the crisis. Now I have a successful restaurant and 2 doctor sons. Degrees aren't lost by serving tables. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of orders, tips, and tired feet. Eleanor observed the diners, many of them former colleagues or clients, who now passed by her without recognizing her. As she closed up, counting her tips, she found a card among the notes. It was from Mr. Harrison, with a note. Excellent service and conversation. If you know any architecture students interested in postgraduate scholarships, have them contact me. Eleanor put the card in her handbag, along with the international master's brochures she had been secretly collecting. Her child moved again. You know something, little one? She whispered as she walked towards her flat. Sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as humility. That night, before sleeping, Eleanor updated her application for a master's in sustainable architecture in Barcelona. In the recommendation letter section, she wrote Mr. Harrison's name. Tomorrow would be another day of serving tables and smiling at strangers. But every tip brought her closer to her goal, and every client who didn't recognize her confirmed that her dignity didn't depend on who remembered her, but on who she chose to be. Do you think Eleanor will be able to make it to Barcelona and pursue her dreams? Share your hopes and predictions in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring true stories. Secrets, hopes, and a reckoning. The envelope from the Polytechnic University of Barcelona arrived on an October morning. Eleanor put it unopened in the drawer of her bedside table, along with the other 4 responses from European universities she had received in recent weeks. It wasn't cowardice, she told herself, but strategy. I'll wait until I have all the options, she murmured every night, caressing her 6-month belly while checking her savings. The society magazines weren't helping. James and Victoria appeared at every important event in the city. Openings, charity galas, exclusive parties. The photos always showed them perfect, always smiling, always together. Can you pass me that magazine? Eleanor asked a client who had left a gossip magazine on the table. On the cover, Victoria modeled an emerald necklace. Love changed my life, the headline declared. The interview talked about her relationship with James, their wedding plans, the house they were remodeling in Kensington. Your dad doesn't waste time, Eleanor whispered to her baby as she cleaned tables at the end of her shift. But neither do we. The nights were the hardest. In the solitude of her studio, Eleanor wrote letters she would never send. Letters to James telling him about the baby. Letters to her parents in Manchester explaining why she had turned down their help. Letters to her future child explaining her decisions. Dear baby, she wrote that night. Today you weighed 800 grams at the ultrasound. The doctor says you're perfectly healthy. Your dad opened another building today. I saw it on the news, cutting the ribbon with the woman he chose over us. I'm not writing this with bitterness, but so you understand that sometimes silence is a form of protection. I didn't keep this secret out of revenge, but out of dignity. The phone vibrated, a message from her mother. My dear, are you sure you don't want us to come? A pregnancy isn't meant to be spent alone. Eleanor looked around her small studio. Architecture books shared space with maternity manuals. A baby mobile, a secret gift from Mrs. Davies, hung over the unassembled cot. I'm fine, Mum, she replied. I have everything under control. Her child's kicks had grown stronger. The doctor said it was an active baby, especially at night. Eleanor had developed the habit of reading architectural plans to him before sleeping. And this, little one, is Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, she explained, leafing through an architecture book. If we get that scholarship in Barcelona, we can see it in person. The envelope from Barcelona was still in the drawer, along with her dreams and her fears. Tomorrow, she promised herself. Tomorrow, I'll open it." For now, in the quiet of the night, Eleanor allowed herself to imagine a future where her child would grow up among plans and buildings, where today's silence would transform into tomorrow's strength. "Sometimes," she wrote in her diary before sleeping, "secrets weigh as much as lies. But you, my little architect, are the only secret that makes me stronger every day." It was Friday evening, and the Angel's Nook was full. Eleanor navigated between the tables with the experience of 3 months of practice, balancing plates and smiles with equal precision. Her black uniform, now noticeably adapted for her 6 months of pregnancy, had become a second skin. "Table 15, Montgomery reservation," announced Harry, the maitre d', during the shift change. Eleanor froze halfway to the kitchen. "James Montgomery, the man himself, with Miss Hayes and some investors." "Assign it to someone else," Mrs. Davies intervened, appearing from the kitchen. "It's Eleanor's section," Harry replied, checking his tablet. "And they specifically requested the terrace area." "I can—" "No," Eleanor interrupted, straightening her back. "It's my section. They're my tables." The entrance of James and his group caused the usual murmur of recognition among the diners. Victoria, spectacular in a gold dress, moved as if the restaurant were a catwalk. The 3 Asian investors followed them, engrossed in a conversation about hotel projects. Eleanor waited for the exact moment. Not too soon to seem anxious, not too late to seem impolite. When she approached the table, her voice sounded perfectly professional. "Good evening. Welcome to the Angel's Nook. I'm Eleanor, and I'll be your waitress tonight." The moment James recognized her was etched in her memory. The color drained from his face. His eyes widened, and the menu he held fell onto the table with a thud. Victoria, distracted with her phone, noticed nothing. "Would you like to start with any appetizers?" Eleanor continued, deliberately ignoring her ex-husband's fixed gaze. "Champagne," Victoria replied without looking up. "Dom Perignon." "Excellent choice. For everyone." The investors nodded. James remained silent, his gaze alternating between Eleanor's face and her obviously pregnant belly. In the kitchen, Eleanor allowed herself 10 seconds of panic before recomposing herself. Mrs. Davies squeezed her shoulder in silence as the bartenders prepared the champagne. The dinner unfolded like a surreal play. Eleanor served dishes, answered questions about the menu, and kept glasses full with an efficiency that would make any service director proud. James barely touched his food. "Everything all right with your steak, sir?" Eleanor asked, with a professional smile. Yes, thank you," James replied, his voice hoarse. When it was time for dessert, Victoria finally looked up from her phone and looked directly at Eleanor. There was no recognition in her eyes, only the superficial evaluation some people reserve for those they consider invisible. "The bill?" James asked abruptly, interrupting Victoria mid-order for tiramisu. At the moment of payment, their hands brushed as she passed the card machine. Eleanor felt the baby kick, as if recognizing his father's proximity. "Eleanor," James began as the rest of the group headed for the exit. "Have a wonderful evening," she replied, turning on her heel towards the kitchen. In the staff restroom, Eleanor vomited the dinner she hadn't had time to eat. When she came out, Mrs. Davies was waiting with a chamomile tea and a silent hug. "More tips than a whole month," Eleanor commented later, counting the notes with trembling hands. "Money doesn't buy dignity," Mrs. Davies replied. "And you, my dear, today you had more dignity than all that man's millions combined." Do you think this encounter will change James's perspective? How do you feel about Eleanor's resilience? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the unfolding drama, the fallout, and the decision. The news spread through London like wildfire. The morning after the encounter at the restaurant, Eleanor's phone wouldn't stop vibrating with messages from numbers she had blocked months ago. "Is it true you're pregnant? Why didn't you tell us?" Did James know? James's mother, Lady Margaret Montgomery, was the first to show up at the restaurant. "Where is she?" she demanded, her elegant figure clashing with the peaceful lunch hour. "Where is Eleanor?" Eleanor emerged from the kitchen, her uniform impeccable and her face serene. "Lady Montgomery," she greeted with professional calm. "Table for one? Don't you dare treat me like any other customer. Is that baby my son's?" Mrs. Davies appeared like a protective shadow. "Madam, this is a respectable establishment. If you wish to have a private conversation, I suggest you make an appointment for another time." "An appointment? With the woman who hid from my son that he's going to be a father? With the woman your son abandoned without asking if there were consequences," Eleanor replied, her voice low but firm. "And yes, Lady Montgomery, this baby is as much a Davies as a Montgomery. But James renounced any rights when he signed the divorce papers without asking questions." "This is unacceptable. I'll speak to the lawyers." "Speak to whoever you like," Eleanor replied. "But now, if you'll excuse me, I have tables to attend to." Next was Catherine, her former sister-in-law, more diplomatic, but equally insistent. "Eleanor, please," she pleaded during her afternoon visit. "James is distraught. He's not eating, not sleeping. And where was that concern when he left me for an influencer? He made a mistake. We all make them." "No, Catherine. A mistake is confusing salt with sugar. What James did was a choice." The calls from lawyers began that same afternoon. Eleanor directed them all to her own solicitor, a young but brilliant professional whom Mrs. Davies had recommended. "They can't force you to do anything," he assured her during a brief consultation. "You signed a waiver for spousal support. The baby wasn't in the divorce terms because you didn't declare it. Legally, you're protected." James tried to contact her directly 3 times. The first, through a floral arrangement sent to the restaurant. Eleanor donated it to the nearby hospital. The second, by waiting for her outside work. Mrs. Davies chased him away with threats of calling security. The third, with a letter that arrived at her flat. "My love," it began. Eleanor tore it up without reading further. At her next medical checkup, the doctor noticed her tension. "The baby is perfect," she assured her, "but you need to reduce stress." "How?" Eleanor asked, looking at the ultrasound image. "When everyone seems to feel entitled to an opinion about my decisions." "Because they are your decisions," the doctor replied. "And so far, all of them have been for the good of this little one." That night, Eleanor finally opened the envelope from Barcelona. The scholarship was full. Tuition, living expenses, international health insurance. An escape. A new life. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered, stroking her belly. "Ready to start again?" The baby kicked as always, at the exact moment. Do you think Eleanor is making the right choice to leave for Barcelona and cut ties with her past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the powerful conclusion. The Architect's Ascent and a Tycoon's Fall. The exclusive appeared in Society Weekly. Victoria Hayes and her demands for her wedding to James Montgomery. The article detailed the influencer's whims. A private island in the Maldives, a £500,000 dress, and a guest list that included half the entertainment world. "Look at this," Harry commented, showing Eleanor the magazine during her break. "Your ex isn't holding back on expenses." Eleanor smiled as she munched on an apple. Her 7th month of pregnancy had made her especially hungry. High prices don't guarantee happiness, but the real crack in the perfect facade appeared a week later. Eleanor was organizing the restaurant's cellar when she overheard a conversation between 2 executives at the next table. "Montgomery is losing control," one was saying. "The Battersea Power Station project is 2 months behind schedule." "It's that new girlfriend of his," the other replied. "She's got him distracted. Did you know she demanded to be the official face of all new developments? Well, I heard she's pushing to be appointed creative director. No experience, no qualifications, nothing." Eleanor continued her inventory, but her ears remained alert. It wasn't unhealthy curiosity, she told herself, but business intelligence. That same afternoon, Victoria appeared at the restaurant with two friends. She didn't recognize Eleanor, who had served her months ago. "I need James to sell that awful Mayfair penthouse," she heard her say between sips of martini. "I'm not living where he lived with the ex. Besides, my reality show architect says we can build something more Instagrammable." "Reality show?" one of her companions asked. "Victoria's Perfect Life. It premieres next month. James doesn't know yet, but part of the filming will be in his office. You know, to show my entrepreneurial side." Eleanor almost spilled the wine she was serving at the next table. Her baby kicked hard, as if sharing her disbelief. Meanwhile, the response from Barcelona was still on her bedside table, waiting for a decision. The program started in 4 months, just when her baby would be 6 weeks old. It was crazy to consider such a drastic change, but every day in London felt like a countdown. That night, as she closed the restaurant, Mrs. Davies found her checking flights on her phone. "Have you made a decision yet?" "Almost," Eleanor replied, stroking her belly. "But every time I think about leaving, something stops me." "Fear or hope?" Mrs. Davies asked with her usual wisdom. "Perhaps both," Eleanor admitted. "But today I understood something important." "What's that?" "That while I was serving tables to build our future, others are destroying theirs to maintain appearances." Mrs. Davies smiled, handing her an envelope. "Then this will interest you. Mr. Harrison came while you were on your break. He left your recommendation letter for the masters." Eleanor opened the envelope with trembling hands. The letter was more than a recommendation. It was a validation of everything she had fought for. "Sometimes," Mrs. Davies said, "the prettiest masks are the first to fall." The scandal erupted on a Tuesday morning. Photos of Victoria kissing Richard Brooks, James's principal partner in the Battersea project, first appeared on Twitter and then spread like a virus across all media outlets. "Exclusive, property tycoon, James Montgomery's fiancée, caught in compromising situation with his partner," screamed the headlines. Eleanor found out while folding napkins in the restaurant. Her phone wouldn't stop receiving links and messages from former colleagues. "Eleanor, did you see?" Harry exclaimed, showing her his tablet. "Looks like your ex has terrible taste in partners." The photos were unequivocal. Victoria and Richard on a yacht in the Mediterranean, at a restaurant in Mayfair, leaving a hotel in Battersea. All dated within the last 3 weeks. "Karma exists," a waitress murmured. But the real chaos arrived that night. James appeared at the restaurant, visibly drunk. "Eleanor!" he shouted from the entrance. "I need to talk to you." Mrs. Davies tried to intercept him. "Mr. Montgomery, this is neither the time nor the place." "It's the only place I can find her," he insisted, stumbling. "Eleanor, please!" Eleanor emerged from the kitchen, her 8-month pregnancy impossible to hide under her uniform. "James, you're making a scene!" "This is a scene," he laughed bitterly. "Like the one Victoria made, like the one you made by hiding my child from me." "Keep your voice down," Eleanor warned, leading James to a secluded table. "Sit down. I ruined everything, didn't I?" he murmured, collapsing into the chair. "I lost you. I lost my child. And now this. The Battersea project is dead. Richard had the key contacts. Without him..." James ran a hand over his face. "And Victoria, she..." "I'm not your therapist," Eleanor interrupted. "And this isn't the time." "Then when? When our child is born? When you go to Barcelona?" Eleanor tensed. "How do you know about Barcelona?" "I have contacts at the university." "Eleanor, please, don't take my child away. We can try again. We can..." "No," she cut him off firmly. "There is no we can. You chose, James. I chose too, and now choose to leave before I call security." As 2 guards escorted James out of the restaurant, Eleanor felt a contraction. Not labor, but Braxton Hicks, her doctor had explained. her body rehearsing for the real moment. That night in her flat, Eleanor finally replied to the email from Barcelona, accepting the scholarship. As she wrote, news on the television showed the fall of Montgomery Development's stock and rumors that several investors were withdrawing from the Battersea project. "Sometimes, little one," she whispered to her belly, "the end of one story is just the beginning of a better one." The baby kicked, as if agreeing with her. In 2 weeks, she had her last ultrasound. In a month, her last day at the restaurant. And in 6 weeks, if all went according to plan, they would be on a plane to Barcelona. The end had arrived, but it wasn't the one James had imagined. Did you expect James to come crashing down like this? What do you think about Eleanor's strong decision to leave? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the ultimate transformation. A new horizon. The day James appeared at her building with a bouquet of white roses and a box from Bond Street's most exclusive jewelry store, Eleanor was packing the last of the architecture books she hadn't yet shipped to Barcelona. 5 minutes, he pleaded from the other side of the door. Just 5 minutes, Eleanor. She watched the scene through the peephole. James Montgomery, the property tycoon, looked disheveled and tired. So different from the man who had left her 8 months ago. "The neighbors will call the police if you keep knocking like that," Eleanor warned, finally opening the door. "You look," he murmured, his eyes fixed on her 9-month belly. "Beautiful. What do you want, James?" He tried to enter, but Eleanor blocked the entrance. The hallway would be enough for this conversation. "I canceled the sales of the Mayfair penthouse," he announced, as if that changed everything. "We can go back, raise our child there. I've been in therapy, Eleanor. 3 weeks already." I realized all my mistakes. 3 weeks of therapy against 8 months of absence, she replied, raising an eyebrow. "The ring was my grandmother's," he continued, opening the velvet box. "I always wanted to give it to you. But you gave it to Victoria," Eleanor completed. "I never gave it to her. I couldn't. It wasn't for her." Eleanor looked at the antique diamond and sapphire ring. In another life, it would have meant everything. Now it was just a reminder of broken promises. "My flight leaves in 2 weeks," she informed him, closing the box without touching the ring. "The baby can arrive any moment. And you're too late, James, too late. He's my child too. A child who didn't exist when you left me. A child who only mattered to you when your perfect new life collapsed." Tears began to stream down James's face. "Please, Eleanor, I love you. I've always loved you." "Love isn't an insurance policy you can claim when everything else fails," she replied, feeling a real contraction this time. "And now I need you to leave." "You, Eleanor, they're waiting for me at the hospital," she interrupted, breathing deeply. "The baby is coming." James paled. "Let me take you. Mrs. Davies is downstairs. She'll accompany me." "I'm the father." "You're the man who abandoned us," Eleanor corrected, holding her belly. "And this moment is mine." As James stood paralyzed in the hallway, Eleanor slowly descended the stairs, each step marking the end of an era and the beginning of another. In the car, Mrs. Davies waited with a packed suitcase and a maternal smile. "Are you ready, my dear?" Eleanor looked up one last time. James had disappeared. "More than ever," she replied, as another contraction announced that her child had chosen this moment, precisely this moment, to begin his own story. What an emotional turning point. Do you think Eleanor made the right choice, or should she have given James another chance? Share your feelings in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the inspiring next chapter. Building a legacy, Barcelona dawned cloudy the day Eleanor and her son Arthur arrived at El Prat Airport. The baby, barely 6 weeks old, slept peacefully in his carrier as she navigated her luggage through the terminal. "Welcome to Spain," greeted Ana Rodriguez, the master's program coordinator, who was waiting for her at the exit. "Smooth flight?" "As smooth as it can be with a newborn," Eleanor smiled, grateful for the help with her bags. The small flat the university had found for her in the Gracia district was modest but bright, with a small extra room that could serve as a study. The white walls reminded her of a blank canvas, waiting to be filled with new memories. "Babies are welcome in all classes," Anna explained as she helped her settle in. "The university has a nursery on campus, but we understand if you prefer to have him with you during the first few weeks." News from London arrived like distant echoes. James had resigned as CEO of Montgomery Developments. The company was now in the hands of a board of directors. The Battersea Power Station project had been permanently cancelled. Victoria had gotten her reality show, but the ratings were disastrous. Rumors placed her in Los Angeles, trying to relaunch her career as an influencer with limited success. Eleanor immersed herself in her studies with the same determination she had shown serving tables. Between bottles and nappies, she designed sustainable building projects that began to attract the attention of her professors. "Your proposal for the zero-energy building is extraordinary," commented her tutor 3 months later. "Have you considered presenting it at the Green Architecture Congress in Amsterdam?" Arthur grew strong and healthy, his dark eyes identical to his mother's. Video calls with Mrs. Davies were weekly, and the restaurant had become a kind of information hub where former colleagues asked about her. "You won first place in the design competition," Anna informed her one spring afternoon. "The prize includes an internship at one of Europe's most important architecture studios." Emails from James arrived regularly, less insistent, more respectful. Photos of the empty Mayfair penthouse, news about the company, cautious questions about Arthur. Eleanor responded with professional courtesy, occasionally sending photos of her son, but holding firm the boundaries she had established. One morning, while preparing her presentation for the Amsterdam Congress, Eleanor found an old photo of the Angel's Nook among her papers. The image of the restaurant, with its white tablecloths and antique chandeliers, brought a nostalgic smile to her face. "Look, Arthur," she whispered to the baby crawling around her study. "That's where our real story began." The little one babbled happily, patting the plans spread out on the low table. "You know something," Eleanor continued, picking up her son. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters." From her window in Barcelona, the sky opened up, infinite and promising. The future, like the buildings she now designed, was built one floor at a time with strong foundations and durable materials. And in that future, the title of waitress on her CV shone with as much pride as her upcoming master's in sustainable architecture. What does Eleanor's journey to Barcelona teach us about resilience and finding your true path? Share your reflections in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the impactful final chapter. The masterpiece of life. The headlines in the Financial Times were devastating. Montgomery Developments faces worst crisis in 20 years. The article detailed a 40% drop in stock value and the loss of multi-million-pound contracts after the Battersea scandal. In Barcelona, Eleanor read the news while feeding Arthur in the university library. The baby, now 8 months old, enthusiastically devoured his baby food as she reviewed the final details of her thesis. "Architect Davies," Professor Williams called, approaching her table. "Your project on sustainable rehabilitation has been selected for the City Council's pilot program." "Seriously?" Eleanor almost spilled her coffee on her plans. "But I'm just a master's student. A student who is revolutionizing our way of thinking about green architecture," he corrected. "The committee was impressed with your proposal to transform abandoned buildings into self-sustaining spaces." Meanwhile, in London, James faced the consequences of his decisions. The board of directors had appointed a new CEO, relegating him to a ceremonial position. His office on the top floor, where he had once built empires of glass and steel, now seemed like a golden cage. Victoria had disappeared from the social map after the failure of her reality show. Rumors placed her in Los Angeles, trying to relaunch her career as an influencer with limited success. "Your father isn't a bad man," Eleanor explained to Arthur as they worked in her home studio. "He's just someone who lost his way." James's emails had become monthly, more reflective. He no longer mentioned reconciliation, but shared news about trusts established for Arthur and business decisions that would affect his son's future. "Life has a strange way of balancing things," Mrs. Davies commented during a video call. "Did you hear Richard Brooks is bankrupt?" Eleanor nodded. James's former partner had tried to launch his own property company, only to fail spectacularly. Her own project, on the other hand, flourished. The Barcelona City Council's pilot program had attracted the attention of international investors. Her thesis on regenerative architecture was being translated into 3 languages. "It's ironic," she reflected one night while watching Arthur sleep. "When I served tables, some customers wouldn't even look me in the eye. Now those same businessmen pay by the hour for my consulting on sustainable construction." Time, that relentless architect, had built something that neither money nor power could buy: authenticity. On her desk, next to the plans for her latest project, rested her old apron from the Angel's Nook. She had framed it, not as a reminder of difficult times, but as a testament to her resilience. "Consequences," she wrote in her diary that night, "are not punishments or rewards. They are simply the echo of our own dudgeons." Arthur stirred in his cot, murmuring in his sleep. Eleanor smiled, thinking of how every decision, every moment of pain and triumph, had led her exactly where she needed to be. A year and a half after her departure, Eleanor returned to London. This time not as James Montgomery's wounded ex-wife, but as the keynote speaker at the International Sustainable Construction Congress. "Look who's on the cover," Mrs. Davies exclaimed, showing her Architecture Today magazine. Eleanor, elegant in an emerald green tailored suit, smiled from the cover alongside the headline, "The Green Revolution in European Architecture." Arthur, now a 2-year-old, who walked with determination, explored the Angel's Nook, the restaurant that had once been his mother's refuge, with fascination. "My beautiful boy," Mrs. Davies lifted him into her arms. "Do you know that here your mum began her new life?" The reunion with London was like waking from a long dream. The city had changed, or perhaps it was she who had changed. Her presentation at the Congress attracted the cream of the property world, including several former colleagues from Montgomery Developments. "Your proposal to transform abandoned buildings into self-sustaining communities is revolutionary," commented the new CEO of Miranda Architectural Group during the cocktail reception. "Would you consider a strategic alliance?" Eleanor smiled, remembering that failed interview 2 years ago. "Send the proposal to my office in Barcelona. My team will evaluate it." News of her temporary return spread quickly. James requested to see her through his solicitors, a formal meeting to discuss Arthur's future. They met in a neutral cafe, far from the places they once shared. James had aged more than was due in 2 years. The gray hairs at his temples and the lines around his eyes told the story of his defeats. "He looks like you," he commented, watching Arthur play with his crayons. "He has your determination." "And your sense of timing," Eleanor replied. "He always knows when to make a dramatic entrance." The conversation was civil, adult. They discussed visits, holidays, education. They didn't mention the past. There was no need. The wounds had healed, leaving only lessons. "I saw your presentation at the Congress," James said as they parted ways. "You're changing the world, Eleanor. I always knew you would." "Sometimes," she replied, We need to lose our way to find our true north. That night, on her last visit to the Angel's Nook, Eleanor once again wore the black uniform, this time by choice. She served tables for an hour, amidst laughter and nostalgic tears. "To never forget where we came from," she explained to Arthur, who watched her fascinated from Mrs. Davies's arms. The lights of London shone differently now, more like guiding stars than fireworks. In her suitcase, along with her return ticket to Barcelona, she carried 3 new contracts and a certainty. She had found her path, and it was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. What an incredible journey of resilience and transformation. What does Eleanor's story teach you about finding success and happiness after adversity? Share your deepest thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring, true-to-life narratives. The circle closes. The Sustainable Architecture Awards ceremony was held at the Tate Modern, the same place where 5 years ago Eleanor had accompanied James to countless social events. This time, she was the protagonist, for her revolutionary contribution to green architecture and her impact on transforming abandoned urban spaces. The International Award for Sustainable Architecture, 2025, goes to Eleanor Davies, announced the presenter. Arthur, now a 3-year-old boy dressed in a small suit, clapped from his seat next to Mrs. Davies, who had traveled from Barcelona especially for the occasion. In the front row, Eleanor's team from Spain and London smiled proudly. "This award," Eleanor began from the podium, "is for all who understand that sometimes we must deconstruct to build something better. For those who know that true architecture isn't just about buildings, but about building futures." In the audience, James listened in silence. He was no longer the all-powerful property tycoon, but he had found his own redemption. His new company, more modest but ethical, specialized in sustainable social housing. After the ceremony, while photographers captured the moment, Arthur ran towards his father. James lifted him with a natural ease that only time and maturity had managed to build. "Congratulations," James said, approaching Eleanor. "The project in Amsterdam is impressive." "Thank you," she replied with a genuine smile. "I heard about your social housing initiative. It's admirable." At the cocktail parties, Society magazine circulated with the latest gossip. Victoria Hayes had returned to London, this time as a second-rate real estate agent. Her reality show was just a shameful memory on YouTube. "Life has a curious way of putting everyone in their place," Mrs. Davies commented, watching Eleanor interact with international investors. The Angel's Nook now had a branch in Barcelona, managed by Mrs. Davies's eldest son, where Eleanor regularly had lunch with her team. Her old black apron remained framed in her office, alongside her awards and recognitions. "Mummy?" Arthur called, tugging at her evening gown. "Can we go eat at Granny Davies' restaurant?" Eleanor looked around. The elegant museum, businessmen in expensive suits, champagne glasses. Then she looked at her son, at Mrs. Davies, at her team, even at James, and smiled. "Yes, my love, let's go back to where it all began." The circle had closed, not like a prison that confined her, but like an embrace that had made her stronger. Her story, which had begun with bitter coffee and a broken heart, ended with a dinner among family and friends, in the place where she had learned that dignity is priceless, and that the sweetest success is built with one's own hands. As they walked towards the restaurant, Eleanor remembered the words she had written in her diary that first night as a waitress. "Sometimes you have to serve tables to learn to build towers," and she had certainly built, not just buildings, but an entire life. The awards ceremony was held at the Tate Modern. Afterwards, as they were leaving, Arthur, still excited, ran up to Eleanor. James, who had been observing from a distance, approached. "Congratulations, Eleanor," he said. "Your work is truly inspiring." "Thank you, James. And yours, with the social housing, is admirable." Later, at the Angel's Nook, Arthur, nestled between Eleanor and James, looked up. "Mummy, Daddy, why aren't you together?" Eleanor and James exchanged a look. "Sweetheart," Eleanor began, "sometimes people grow in different directions, but that doesn't mean they stop caring about each other, especially when there's someone as special as you involved." James nodded. "Your mum and I are very happy being friends, and we're both here for you. Always." Arthur, with the simple wisdom of a child, seemed to accept this. "Okay," he said, then looked at his mum. "Can I have another piece of cake?" Eleanor smiled. "Of course, champion." As the night ended and the last guests left, Eleanor, James, and Arthur sat on the steps of the entrance, the sounds of the city fading into a gentle hum. Eleanor looked at Arthur, safe and happy between them. She had built a life on her own terms, found success through hard work and integrity, and learned that true family extends beyond traditional definitions. James, though not her husband, was a committed co-parent, a friend, and a fellow advocate for a better world. Arthur eventually drifted to sleep, leaning against James. Eleanor leaned back, content. The quiet strength of her choices had led her here, to a life richer than any she could have imagined. She looked up at the London sky, thinking of her grandmother, of Mrs. Davies, of all the women who had shown her that dignity, resilience, and love could build the most magnificent of futures. Her story was not a fairy tale ending, but a testament to the power of a woman who chose herself, her child, and a life built on solid ground. And in that, she found her forever. What an incredible journey of resilience and transformation. What does Eleanor's story teach you about finding success and happiness after adversity? Share your deepest thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring true-to-life narratives.